All right, noting the presence of a quorum and the time at 7:30, I now call the finance meeting to order. First item is public comments, which there are none. And then, are you doing your budget update today? Okay, so I thought you were, and so I'm deferring to you. I'll stop sharing and let you take, or I would go, yeah.
Okay, good evening. I'm Ellie Anderson, I'm the Budget Director, and I'm here to present the FY 2026 first quarter report. So these reflect financials through the end of September. So just as a reminder, or for anyone new, this report will be published on the town website tomorrow morning. It can be found, if you click on budget info, go to financial documents, and then you'll see a historical listing of all of the quarterly reports and presentations. So in front of you is last year's report so that you can compare numbers. So I'll also just put in a plug that also on that webpage, there's a whole bunch of helpful financial information, including historical budget documents, the popular annual financial report, the ACFR, and also the town's bond rating letters, should anyone be interested. So moving on to general fund revenues, we have property taxes, net state aid, and local receipts. So as of Q1, so the end of September, we've collected $29,787,000 in property taxes. This comes out to 25.85% collection. Through the same time frame, we've collected $292,000 in state aid, which comes out to 17.7%. And then local receipts were just over $1 million collected, which comes out to 16.84% of our $6.5 million target. Free cash has been submitted to the Department of Revenue, but it's still being reviewed. They're awfully busy this time of year doing tax rates. So what I have printed here is last year's certification of 5.1 million. So we hope to have an updated certification in the coming weeks. On this side, we have general fund expenditures. So the FY 2026 operating budget was $40.8 million. To date, we've spent $13.6 million, which comes out to 33.36%. Just as a reminder, this number in the first quarter is often a bit higher than you would expect. And that's because the town pays the Middlesex County retirement assessment in full on July 1st. So we'll move on to our enterprise funds. First one is Septage. Septage had an approved budget of just over $166,000. We used $64,000 in retained earnings on this budget, which means we will expect to collect $102,500. So as of September 30th, we've collected just under 37% of that target. And we've spent just over $21,000, which comes out to 12.86% of that budget. Next, we have transfer station. Transfer station had an approved budget of $992,725. We're hoping to collect $670,000 in fees. Through the end of September, we've collected just over $319,000. So that comes out to 47.66%. And we've spent $199,000 just over, which comes out to just over 20%. I did include a note down at the bottom that we did increase the pay-as-you-throw bag rates. That was approved by the select board this past June. So those are in effect for fiscal 2026. And then I also just wanted to provide a note that this budget's a bit higher than it was in the prior year. And that's because included in that number is $225,000 in capital for a front-end loader. Next, we have sewer. The approved budget was just over $2.5 million. We're hoping to collect $2.6 million in fees. Through the end of September, we've collected just under $500,000, so that comes out to 22.53%. We've spent almost $678,000, which comes out to 26.21%. So I threw a note down there at the bottom that that expense number is a little bit inflated because we've expended more than 25% of our debt budget. We spent 38.47%.
Could you pause on that for a moment, please? Yeah, because just at top level, we're looking at 1.8 last year versus 2.5 this year. You said that we're doing a large debt budget expense this year?
So the debt budget this year has increased. The sewer plant rehabilitation project, the first year debt service payment is coming due this year. So there is more debt coming out of this budget than there was last year because of that project.
So is that an operating expense or a capital expense?
It's an operating expense.
The sewer debt budget, you said.
Yes.
The debt is an operating expense?
The debt is a part of that $2.5 million budget approved at town meeting.
That wasn't June of 2025, that was May of 2025, but then the first expense was a month late? Is that what you said?
No.
Okay, so I'm confused. In June of 2025, the sewer rates went up. You said that the debt budget was approved at the last town meeting last year?
So what I intended by that note is that we have a budget for debt service for the entirety of the fiscal year. So because of the timing of when those payments are due, we've expended more than 25% of that budget because we made some debt payments right on July 1st. So because of that, our percent spent is a little bit higher than you would expect.
So the $700,000 difference between last year and this year is all capital?
I think I'd want to dig into that a little deeper.
I'm looking at a expense last year of 1,884 and an expense this year of 2,586. So that's 702,000.
Yes, so part of the bulk of that is debt service related. So the debt service for the original construction of the plant, it has peaks and valleys. It fluctuates greatly from year to year. the debt service for the construction of the original plant is funded by betterments. So that amount is transferred annually to pay that expense. But on top of that normal debt service, we have debt service for the rehabilitation of the plant. That's about $240,000. So that's new this year.
Okay.
Next, we have the ambulance enterprise. So the approved budget was just over $2 million. To date, we've collected $373,000, just a bit over, which comes out to a 26.19% collection rate. And we've expended $356,000, which comes out to 17.63% expended. And I also included a note down at the bottom that we did have a rate increase that was approved by the select board in April of 2025. And that was in effect from the remainder of fiscal '25 and will be in effect throughout all of 2026. Finally, for the enterprise funds, we have the transportation enterprise. So this had an approved budget of $565,599. It received a general fund subsidy. It also, this year, received a commuter lot subsidy. So this budget's being offset $100,000 in commuter lot revenues. And then we also use retained earnings. So the amount of money we're expecting to collect is $248,000. We've collected $22,000 of that, which comes out to 8.93%. And then we've spent $62,642, which is 11.08%. Next, we have our revolving funds. The first of which is fire alarm. To date, we've collected $9,000, or about 12% of the budget, and we've spent $5,442, or 7.24%. Next, we have building inspector. To date, we've collected, or through the end of September, we've collected just over $83,000, or 13.71%, and we've spent just over $98,000, or 16.19%. I did include some notes on the side. This fund supports the annual cost of the OpenGov software, which is used for permitting all throughout town. Something new for fiscal year 2026 is we have a new fire prevention officer, which is being funded in entirety out of this account. And that the budget and the fund balance are being reviewed as part of the FY27 budget process. Next, we have sealer of weights and measures. We've collected $725 so far this year. That is typical. The bulk of the revenue for this fund comes in at the end of the fiscal year, and we've spent $4,662. Next, we have food service inspection. We've collected just under $4,000, and we've spent $10,874. Similar to sealer and weights and measures, this is typical for at this point in the year as the bulk of the revenue comes in Q2 and Q3. Next, we have hazardous materials. We've collected $3,475, spent $9,293, and similar to the other funds, the bulk of the revenue comes in Q2 and Q3. Next, we have Historic District Commission, the smallest of all the revolving funds. We've collected $70 so far, and we haven't spent anything. Next, we have stormwater inspections. We've collected $22,040. We've spent $4,751. I did include a note that this budget is higher than it typically is, and it's because it includes $100,000 in funding for a stormwater management program utility study. Next, we have Crosstown Connect. Through the end of September, we've collected $27,421. We have not spent anything just yet. Next, we have roadway maintenance. We've collected just over $4,200, spent $1,659. We have public shade tree next. We've not collected anything. We have not spent anything. Next, we have our newest revolving fund, the Fire Prevention Revolving Fund. Through the end of September, we've collected $11,350. We've spent $5,110. So as I noted with the building inspector revolving, the fire prevention officer, at least for the time being, is being paid entirely out of the building revolving fund. So the expenses that you're seeing here are training, supplies, books, uniforms, things like that. Finally, for the revolving funds, we have the recreation programs. Through the end of September, we've collected just under $160,000. We've spent $438,568. So as you know, the bulk of recreation spending happens after July 1, because that's when camp is going on. And then we expect most of the revenues to come in after the first of the year, once registrations begin. And finally, for our funds, we have the commuter lot fund. Through the end of September, we've collected $19,540. We've spent $11,281. Of that approved budget at town meeting, $82,000 or so of that is debt service related to 19 and 21 Maple Street. The remaining $20,000 is for maintenance of the lot and other operating costs. And then, as I mentioned with the Transportation Enterprise Fund, there was an additional $100,000 appropriation to subsidize that.
I have a stupid question. Might as well let me get this one out of the way. And I think probably most of my committee has answered this question, but I'm going to ask this anyway. So each of these revolving funds, do they have a dedicated bank account? So if I wanted, like, yeah, you understand, yeah.
They do not. So like for each of these funds do not have their own bank account. The accounting for them occurs in Munis, our accounting software.
Constant accounting software. And so when a fund is short money, you're borrowing it from someplace else? So like, you know, one of the ones that you showed negative and you've spent more than you've taken in, where does that money come from?
So I'll go back to an example. So if we're looking.
This one I got, you said you borrowed it from someplace else. Go to a different one, because you already explained that one. All right, so stormwater. So you spent, well, this one's, this is positive. Revenues are 22,000 and expenses are 4,000. That's a positive number.
Oh, I might have accidentally included.
Ellie, can you go to recreation?
Okay.
Yeah, just one that is clean. Yeah, here's a good example. You spent 400 grand, you took in 160. So where'd the 278 come from?
Yep. So in this example, by the end of the year, any revolving fund that's spent more than it's collected, that delta is covered by its fund balance. So if this is how this account ended for the year, that gap would be bridged by the fund balance that it has on hand. But opposite, if it collects more than it spends, then we're contributing to that fund balance we're adding.
All right, so it has a balance of, let's say, $500,000 to start the year. You budgeted that you're going to collect another $500,000, and so during the course of the year, you spend, let's say, 200, and then ideally at the end of the year, you collect 500, you spend this. You expect 500, spend 500, but if you don't, it just reduces the prior year's balance.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Greg.
My question has to do with stormwater. When do we determine that it's our job to fix it or the state's job? In other words, are they responsible for, let's say, Route 27? Or are we on the hook for that?
Great job, Ellie. I'm here to support for questions like this. I'm John Mangiarotti, I'm the town manager. We are federally mandated, and in turn, DEP has mandated us, because the federal government mandated them, to take care of all the stormwater in our community. There are certain infrastructure assets that they would own when they're building the roads and repairing the roads, but in general, everything's on us.
May I follow up, please? About 4 months ago, we were presented with a presentation from RAC about the state of our stormwater capabilities and stormwater risks. Is this $100,000 in the feasibility study independent of what RAC did, complementary to what RAC did? And how would you categorize the presentation that was given to us from RAC a couple of months ago?
Thank you. That's a good question, because there's been a lot of work in this area. RAC has been around for 15, maybe longer years, and I think when they initially started going, one of the outcomes of their process was developing the stormwater fee program that we have in place now. Fast forward to the last few years, we in engineering and DPW realized that there may be a need for finding a way for additional revenue to handle all these infrastructure needs that continue to pile on with the federal mandates that came down on us. We put funding in the FY26 budget, but during the budget season last year, RAC was designated, or the select board asked RAC to do sort of a preliminary study to figure out where they want to go based on they're an advisory body that advises the select board. So before we spend any money of this $100,000, we wanted to hear from RAC if what they want to do. So they've presented to you over the summer. I believe they're going to be presenting to the select board before the end of the calendar year with the results of their report.
May I follow up? Last meeting, at the last meeting of the Finance Committee, we did discuss whether or not we, as a body, felt that stormwater fees were something that should be done as a fee, or if it should be considered part of general taxation. First of all, did you get a liaison report from us regarding what our position was on fees versus general taxation? And do you agree with the findings of this committee?
Findings?
The recommendations. Findings may be too strong a word. I believe that multiple members of the committee last meeting made it clear, and again, I ask my committee to agree or disagree, that stormwater remediation, stormwater maintenance is something that is not a user fee, but something that should be borne by all of the taxpayers of the town and should be part of a taxpayer overall tax bill and not an individual fee. Is that the communication that you received as well? And do you agree with that recommendation?
Well, I did hear about the discussion that took place, sort of as something that you wanted to discuss, but not it was an official recommendation or determination. I think the thing that's interesting about that subject is that town meeting voters, maybe you were there, a decade or more ago, decided that it should be funded through fees, and so it has been since that time. But I think as the RAC presents their recommendation, any changes to that is where feedback from the Finance Committee would be very critical to what the board decides to do. But I think your recommendation preceded the report, if that's what it was. So I think the board is going to hear the report before they decide to take up your recommendation. Does that?
Thank you.
Any adverse trends or areas of concern that you'd like to highlight for this quarter?
No, I don't think so. I think for the most part, the numbers and the collection rates and the expenses are pretty on par with where we would expect to be at this point.
Mine's just a comment. Transfer station, we probably should have a note on that slide stating that the permit fees are collected in September. So that skews that number that you see, that the fees are higher at 319, 339, almost 50% because of the collection of the permit fee in September.
Yes, that's correct. The annual transfer station stickers go on sale September 1st. So the bulk of the sticker revenue is going to come in the first quarter. So that's exactly right.
Sure. Hi, Ellie. Stupid question number 2. I remember setting up the public shade tree revolving fund, but apparently last year we spent nothing. And so far this year we spent nothing. Have we ever spent anything on that?
I do not believe so, at least as far back as I've looked. And as was shown on the slide, there's no fund balance either, which I think would indicate that you're correct.
Does anybody remember why we did that? You there, in the beard?
So that this just makes it easier to expend revenues that we get from when someone needs to take down a public shade tree. So we have a policy that if, as part of a development, someone wants to take down a public shade tree, there's kind of a formula that we use for how big the tree is, and they pay the town for the tree. And then because of this revolving fund, the tree warden can buy smaller trees and put them around places. Whether this gets any revenue or not depends on whether someone proposes to take down a public shade tree. And it hasn't been in effect for that long, but we had a situation where a couple of big public shade trees went down, and there was no effective way for us to reuse the revenue that we had. It just went into the general fund. And so we would have had to have a specific appropriation at town meeting to spend it, and the revolving fund just makes that easier.
Ellie, can you please go to transportation? We're expecting effectively slightly less revenue than we did the previous year. But we have higher expenses. What's going on? Where did the higher expenses come from?
So the revenue figures might be a little bit different because of the reintroduction of the commuter lot subsidy.
I'm sorry, we're expecting lower fees.
Okay, gotcha. Hold on.
I mean, we have received lower fees.
Oh,
We'll
we've
get there
collected
eventually.
lower fees.
Yes.
Okay. So this is mostly a timing issue because these fees are collected from the LRTA. So we collect all of our monthly invoices, bills, and ridership reports from our contractor transaction. We put together an invoice, we send it to the LRTA, and then we receive reimbursement for that. So it's often a timing issue because it's a little bit of a process to get all of that together.
Thank you, Ellie. You had said that the certification of free cash flow, for certification of free cash is delayed because things are quite busy. My question is, we had this number for this presentation last year. Are things late this year? Or is it just a bad week? And, you know, would we have the numbers next week? And is it just a question of timing?
So I do believe it's a timing issue. If memory serves, we actually gave this Q1 presentation pretty late last year. So if I were to guess, I think that we might have received that number ahead of when we gave that presentation. We're giving this presentation a little bit earlier. I will say free cash was submitted at the end of October, which is earlier than it was submitted last year. But this time of year, the DOR has to prioritize tax rate recaps.
And this being Thanksgiving week, I don't expect a whole lot getting done at the state level. My corollary question to this is there a most recent town audit? And if so, can it be forwarded to us?
So the most recent town audit would be fiscal year 2024. It can be forwarded to you. It is also published on the town website, same place where the quarterly reports go.
When do we anticipate the fiscal year 25 audit to come in?
It is currently underway. I don't have an exact estimate of when it will be published, but the auditors were here this week, so they're well into their work.
And traditionally comes in December, January, February?
I think it's usually after the first of the year.
January.
I don't want to say January for sure that it will be published, but I think it's usually after the first of the year.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, do you want to address the OPEB letter, or you want to just let that be as it stands? If you want, I can bring it up.
Thank you for the opportunity, and apologies for getting it to you at 5 o'clock today for your 7:30 meeting. But hopefully you understood what we're trying to do here is that we've been very successful due to forward thinking of people here 12 or 15 years ago. We've been able to successfully set aside $13 million in our OPEB trust, which puts us ahead of many communities, I would say most communities, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country. So we're in a good spot, and we don't want to take away from that, but we do think that given the financial constraints that we're facing these last few years, we've already tried to modify how we do it with the last few years, where we'd put in 600 and take 300 out, with a net contribution being 300. There's a lot of work for a net contribution of 300. So I'm recommending, and I had an initial discussion with the board last week, and I'll discuss it again on the 15th of December with the board. But we're hoping to simplify it, and in addition to appropriating money every year, which we've done since 2012, I believe, or maybe even before that, I'd like to focus on using reserves. Not all of our reserves, but an appropriate amount of reserves to help fund that long-term liability. So, for example, this past year, the fiscal year 25 budget, we didn't spend all of our health insurance budget for several reasons, vacancies being one of them, several other factors. But in the end, we returned back a lot of money from our health insurance budget. It would be interesting to then transfer some of that funding, once it's closed out to free cash, transfer some of that to OPEB to say, this is going to help us in the long term. We also have a refund coming from a health insurance trust, which is the partnership we were in with the school district for several years, came to an end last year. We gave them money to sort of cover runout claims. It's seeming like we're not going to need to spend that money, so they're giving us back almost $300,000. That's another thing, to me, seems like a good thing to put into OPEB. Potentially. I mean, the board would need to approve that recommendation, and then the town meeting ultimately would have to approve it too, but that's what we're thinking, so that we can maintain a minimum of $300,000 every year, but in this next coming up town meeting, we'd be targeting an amount of over $400,000 to contribute, using both reserves and an appropriation at town meeting, both in the operating budget, but also from all those things that you just went over with Ellie, all those revolving funds and enterprise budgets. We're paying for staffing out of those, and in some cases, health insurance. And so we want to make sure we're also covering some of our OPEB liability from those. So I think in the past, we've done 25 to 30,000 maybe from enterprise and revolving. I'd like to increase that to 40,000. I think we cover probably close to 25 employees out of those, or pieces of 25 employees. So that's the recommendation. Would love to hear any feedback you have as the Finance Committee, either tonight, or please reach out to me before the 15th of December if you have something else to offer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager, I'm very much confused. Did you just say that we had an excess in our health insurance come back to us?
Well, I said-
After all that it blew up our budgets for the last 2 years, you're saying we had an excess come back to us?
What I said is that we budgeted an amount of money, which we didn't use, and so we turned it back at the end of the year.
Okay.
Scott did a much better job with the health insurance trust than I did.
Okay.
Now, we
Long-winded-
planned on some significant run-out claims, meaning we would have to pay off the health insurance trust's existing claims from the year before, plus carry the Maya premiums for this year. So we wound up being in a favorable position because the run-out claims were not nearly what they were projected to be.
Sounded like he said both run-out claims and budget,
The budget, I
Came to the
think, was just
positive.
based on head count.
and headcount was lighter than expected, and therefore okay. So we've been told for the last couple of years that the number one killer of our budget has been health insurance. And both the run-out claims and the budget were overestimated? Well, the run-out claims were underestimated, and the budget was overestimated for at least 1 year? That's a painful pill to swallow, sir.
It's still killing the budgets. It's not like, I mean, what was the increase this year? Playing 12% for Maya?
So the first page of the memo speaks a little bit to the timing and how we were hit with that mid-year 22% increase as we were planning for the FY25 budget. So we figured that out, and then we budgeted 15% on top of that because we didn't know any better. And then when that came through, last year, we had the same thing, 15% increase, which we budgeted on top of. I presented this actually in the most recent budget presentation where we show the actuals, we show the budgeted, and then we show the actuals, and there was a big spike in '24, and the actuals went down. So as I said in August, we've been looking at our health insurance budget, and we're going to be recalibrating how we do it going forward. And that's something that we've been talking about for the last few months. It has been a major hit to our budget, even if we are returning funding last year.
You understand why it's difficult to square both of those statements, correct?
I think I explained it pretty well in the memo and in my previous presentations. I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Okay, again, it came out at 5 o'clock today. Secondly, in years past, we've done $600,000 this year, proposing $440,000. How much does this delay the fully funded nature of this fund balance?
We got really good news on that, which I think I mentioned at the last meeting, or maybe not, but we are 58% funded. The $300,000 net contribution was not going to have any adverse effect on our funding position, so I think a $400,000 would be even better.
I think it pushes it out 3 or 4 years. I don't remember exactly. I had the actual report last week, but I didn't
Okay.
mention it.
I hate delaying stuff. I dislike delaying stuff. This is paying, this is pushing out future risk to make present pain less painful. And that's only a valid thing to do if we believe that there's going to be material change to the risk profile in the next couple of years. And I'm not sure that's the consensus of this committee.
The fact is, it doesn't push it out significantly longer. What I like about this is we finally have a funding policy, meaning we didn't before. It was 600,000, but it could have been nothing.
For years, it was 600,000, and only recently did we start deciding to do 600,000 but take 300 back.
But now we've set a minimum of 300,000 plus whatever else we can find, which in my mind is a good thing.
Better than the 300,000, not quite as good as the 600,000, I hear you.
You're ignoring the part that makes me extremely uncomfortable, which is no indication of how much is going to be spent out of it. This says, we'll put a minimum of 300,000 in, but we can pay for it. out of that, which last year, I believe, was $1 million? You know, what came out of, no, the entire expense. We put 300,000 towards the entire retiree expense. What was the entire?
So there's two different situations. The entire cost for health insurance for our retirees is around $1.1 million. So we pay for that out of the operating budget, except for last year, we used $300,000 from OPEB to pay for that. What I'm suggesting is that we continue to just pay for the existing retirees out of the operating budget, and instead of that net contribution to OPEB and paying for some of it from OPEB, I'm not recommending, well, I do not plan to recommend that we spend anything from OPEB in '27, that we just put money in and then pay for it out of the budget and keep moving forward. So that would be the recommendation coming from this.
But that's not what this policy says. The policy says we'll put 300K in, and then it says we can pay for health insurance out of OPEB. It doesn't say any limit on what that is. My concern is just that, like, I understand your
It
intentions.
could have a limit. A limit's a good idea.
My concern is that this
Yeah.
language is setting us up for a future.
Yeah, I think a limit is a good thing to add to that draft policy.
Although it came in at 5, I had time to take a look at it, and this was discussed last Monday night's select board meeting that 4 of us attended. So I had the gist of this ahead of time, and I support this plan. And so I know we have not taken a formal vote on this yet, but I just wanted to indicate that from my perspective, I think this does the right thing in terms of putting that policy in writing. I like what Christie has suggested as an amendment, but I support this.
One other philosophical point we have discussed before. This sounds to me like we're talking about funding an operating expense, potentially. If we're considering it in terms, I'm going to back up a step. To make sure I understand this, because in watching this select board meeting, got distracted by the DPW discussion and did not make it to this part. Are you saying here that the money proposed for next year to go in will be some from free cash, in addition to some from the operating budget, and then you had some coming from somewhere else, from a turn back effectively? There was a mention of free cash, and I can't remember.
Yeah, so there's 3 things that I know we have now. We have free cash. It hasn't been certified yet, but I know it's there. We have our typical practice of appropriating within the operating budget. And we have the practice that we started a few years ago, which is also appropriating from the enterprise budgets. So those are 3 sources that I know I'll be recommending. There's a 4th source that's still pending, which is that refund from HIT. The mechanics of that, they're still figuring out when we're going to get it, so I don't want to commit to it if we're not going to get it till June, for example. So, yes.
I just want to be clear that you're not, I believe, saying that we should plan to go forward funding this out of free cash. That we're not setting that's the plan from now on.
No, I think in the past several years, it's always been just a budget appropriation of tax funds to put into OPEB. And what I'm suggesting is that we use a combination of that and any free reserves that are appropriate and are recommended for putting in. So if there are no reserves and no refunds and nothing that we have any appetite for using from our reserves, then according to this policy, we would need to come up with $300,000 of an appropriation in a future year without any reserves.
Okay.
But
my discomfort is that we've discussed only using free cash for one-time expenses, and OPEB contributions should not be a one-time expense.
I think you can look at it several ways. So, yeah, I get it.
I mean, you could tell us that you're doing a flagpole or something with the free cash money and pay for this out of some other budget. It's just the language you use. I understand that.
Yeah, because we're putting together this trust fund to cover all the retirees for the rest of their lives in their health insurance. So it's something that we're putting it away, and it'll grow while it's there. So anything we can add to it is a bonus. And if in worst case scenario, we continue paying out of the operating budget for all the retirees like we're doing now. I mean, we could continue doing that forever and never use our OPEB trust. I don't think that'll happen, but
Well,
that could happen.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm concerned that we will switch our budgeting mindset model to just paying for our OPEB contribution out of free cash. And so if free cash gets tight one year, we're not contributing to OPEB, and that would be a problem.
Yeah, so this sets up a minimum, and it doesn't say that. It says a minimum of a combination of those two things. And if, as I said, if one of those isn't available, it would have to come from the other. So if there isn't any reserves available, this policy states that 300 would have to come from appropriations.
And by any reserves available, you mean dropping us below what is determined as an acceptable limit, at least by the state, like the DOR limit floor? You're saying
No, I
down to zero?
just mean available based on the policy
Okay.
direction of the board. I mean, right now, we have 5 million plus in free cash last year. This
Yeah,
year, it'll
okay.
be similar.
But you're not saying as long as that money isn't, as long as there isn't a dollar in that account?
No, I think this policy would be kind of built in with all the other things. We have sort of a standing policy that we try to stay within 3% and 5%, and this policy would be overlaid on that, so that if both of those things are true, then we may have, and there's no big project that the select board or someone else wants to spend the free cash on, then that would be a year to use 150 from free cash to help with our OPEB liability. But it's a year-to-year discussion and basis, instead of just not discussing it at all.
Oh,
I want
agree.
to introduce the discussion.
I'm not trying to be contrary. I want to make sure that I understand.
Yeah.
That we are on the same understanding of how things are going to go, because trouble comes if we think we walked out of this with the same
Well,
thing.
and I'm with you, and that's why having it in writing, in case neither of us are here in a few years,
Yeah.
that everyone else behind us knows what we're talking about.
Yep, thank you.
And if it helps, I put what I was thinking about this in writing. So I summarized it by saying, I've looked at it, I support this. I think it's the right flexibility going forward with still making the commitment. But I also agree with you that an additional spending limit probably needs to be added. So I hadn't thought about that at 5:04 this evening when I got this.
I just want to state that we're not giving opinions on this, he's just presenting it. So, I mean,
Are we not going to vote on this at some
this
point?
is not something we're voting on, right?
Well, we're certainly not voting on it on the day that we receive it.
Yeah,
We have
no.
until the
No,
fif-
okay.
We have until the 15th to give him feedback.
Yeah.
My initial feedback, having not been able to read it because I'm only hearing what was presented today.
Yeah.
Is that this is $440,000 as a fluke of this year, which is still less than the $600,000 that we did just 3 years ago. And the net of the net of my two previous statements is that we're still delaying full OPEB funding by 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, so we'll vet it, but we're not making a vote on this tonight. Thank you, John.
Thanks for the
Unless-
opportunity.
I'm assuming there's no other questions for John. All right. I'm going to move on to the point of view, unless there's any objections. All right. I made some edits to the deck. I'm going to do what I did last week. I'm just going to buzz through it real quick. And then maybe we'll be done in 3 minutes. Who knows? All right, so this is version 5. Again, this is unchanged from the last time I ran through. It's just kind of explaining what the SWOT analysis is. There we go. And then going to strengths, this unchanged from prior presentation. towns, grants, show that they're about 12% of gross spend. School, about 3%. School ratings slide unchanged, just, that's a ChatGPT download of school rating with all the sources of it. Again, this is the debt slide that I found. I added the research that Christie did live in their meeting last week, that targets to be below 5%. And then this is a slide that I got. I didn't edit that. It should be 2 of 2. Didn't fix that. This is straight out of the town manager's deck that he was showing with his budget. So that's all unchanged. This is unchanged, again, highlighting the 58% funding of the OPEB that John just spoke to. Unchanged challenges, health insurance, more projects that we can pay for. AB forward study incomplete, fire station study incomplete. Again, I left this in. I think that financial impact of bylaws isn't really reflected in our forecast models because we just need more data. Stormwater, we just talked about whether it's a fee or taxes expecting to come up in town meeting. Opportunities, capital plan, just best practices. I have not reconciled this with the town's capital plan, just stating best practices for capital plan. Maintenance, again, I put this one back in. I had taken it out last week and put it back in, unchanged. That maintenance seems to be the driving force behind a lot of what's costing the town, and looking back at how we're handling our maintenance on an annual basis, trying to find a best practice for that and see how the town reconciles with that. AB forward, rather than showing an eye chart of what they think their financial impact is right now, I just updated this with their timeline. They're still going through their process. At the ALG meeting last week, Peter Light indicated one fact, which is that they're planning to not have students in Conant, and that the expected savings of that so far is just the utility cost, which is about 80 grand a year. No other savings have been projected that are been decided upon. So this is their task forward here. Again, if we had a budget shortfall that we thought we might be able to fix long-term, it was a short-term problem, is there something that we can sell? Again, we brought that up prior meetings. This slide, affordability, comparing Acton to towns that have equal population, equal owner-occupied. Our tax bill is significantly higher than the rest of them. And then just showing these towns and their number of apartments to show that they are kind of having the same mix as Acton does. Summary, just added that today. This kind of putting some bullet points behind what those slides showed. Can come back to that. And then I reworked the point of view slide with the ALG forecast that's handed out at the November 18th meeting. I know there's still work to be done this. I highlighted the Minuteman growth there because I think at the ALG meeting, John mentioned that, I think it was John that mentioned that he thought that that might be a mistake. So that's probably not flat year over year, but this is a model that's constantly being changed. But the first time I presented this, the numbers that jumped off the page, I believe Alex asked me about it when I first presented this, was the Minuteman numbers. And since my last update of this, which was, I think the first time I did this and I didn't change the numbers until today to the current ALG forecast, the Minuteman numbers have come down. And And now, compared to where they were on a percentage basis in prior years, they're actually favorable, and that's because I think we've had decreased enrollment, and I think several people on this committee can speak to that. Looking at the same percentage of revenue for town and school, the town is running about $1 million, looks like about $1.8 million, $1.9 million short. And then the school is running, it gets exponentially larger as we go out, whereas the town is more stable. So when we look at the bottom line on the ALG model that shows a shortfall in 2031 of 19 million, as you can see, based on the percentages of revenue that historically the town and the school have had, the town is, I would say, in 2031, we would probably say that's a number that we can probably figure out, $2 million 5 years from now, where the challenge is clearly is on the school side, 16.5 million. At the ALG meeting, I did request from John and Peter, Peter Light and John, town manager, to have a complete breakout for the last couple closed calendar years and then going out in time of the health insurance, because I want to see the cost that we can't control, what it looked like as a percentage of revenue the last couple of years, what it looks like now, what it looks like forecasted out. I'm sure there's a number of costs that we can't control, and from my point of view, stripping out what we can't control from what is, what would be expected growth in these areas leads us to, I think, what we should be focusing on and what's left. And I think there's a lot, I know that, AB Forward is doing a lot of work, so I think that these numbers are going to probably change, bi-monthly up until we get to town meeting. But I think having a baseline that we can look at and compare to and see how it's breaking out and where changes, where things need to be adjusted will be helpful. I'll come back to this. I'm just going to buzz through the rest. Finance committee, I didn't really change this from last week. Staffing ads, so if you ever add staffing ads should have an offset. Understanding that replacement hires, that were for departed staff would be filled. Doing the excluded debt, no bundling projects, so that everything should be standalone. I'm not going to read the rest of the slide. This was the same as last week. And I'll come back to it, Jason. Then I added, because of the last meeting that we had, there was a request to highlight some products, some items that we think might be at town meeting. So I added the stormwater, DPW feasibility study, the town hall HVAC, and then finally, the last thing I added was just to have an official opinion on the any potential override. And I magically came up with this well-scripted couple of sentences. Thank you, Steve. Which I just dropped in because I was running out of time today. So I used your words. So, all right, I will go. I know Jason has comments. So tell me where to go and I'll.
Just to comment on the excluded debt, just a couple of slides back. I want to be clear that it is our position that projects need to be identified and voted yea or nay on a per project basis, but that we absolutely wish to bundle as many projects together into a single bonding at a time so that we save bonding costs.
All right, can you give me like the sentence that you want me to replace with this? You don't have to do it live, but.
That excluded debt, second bullet, first line.
All right, I'll just go to it. Yep. All right, What do you want me to say here?
Highlight that entire line.
And then hit delete?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not offended.
Projects must be approved on a per-project basis. Bundling multiple projects.
Approved.
Bundling multiple projects from a borrowing perspective is advantageous.
Bundling, what's the rest of your sentence? I'm not a fast typist, so.
Bundling multiple projects from a borrowing perspective is advantageous.
I don't think that part needs to be written.
Okay. I agree with you, but what was on the slide before
Yeah.
did not make it clear
Oh,
that,
I agree. I just don't
Okay.
think you need to write.
So just leave it at bundling projects must be approved on a per-project basis.
yep,
Yes.
that's fine with
But
that.
that's not just for excluded debt. We ran into this at town meeting where there's some projects were on the same line, like it was transfer station and childcare subsidy.
Do you want,
Transfer.
I can change it from excluded debt to, like, what'd you say, all debt?
Yes.
All debt. Well, there can be a lot of typos now, dude. Project must be for per project basis. Where? Per project basis. What are you saying, Roland? No, we took that out. Oh, we are. Pay attention, dude. All right. All right. Alex and.
Can you go to the forecast slide, please? In FY '25, can you reconcile the growth percentage there? Up top says 55.7%.
Growth from 2024 in just that category.
Was it,
I-
was
I-
it 55 points? I would like that to be
I
double
have,
checked.
hold on, let me get the spreadsheet up. Hold on. Let's see.
I'm not good with the words, but I like to look at the numbers in the Excel spreadsheets, so.
Let's see, it was 8.2 million the prior year. So yeah, it's
Okay.
a big increase. Didn't think I had the schedule behind it, did you?
No, that's great. That's, you know, if you look at the trend on that, across the board, 55 jumps out as an outlier, so,
Oh, yeah, it certainly does.
and that's why it caught my attention.
But I thought if I included this whole schedule, people would go blind.
Yes, especially, and they would have questions with FY '24 and FY '25, because you see
Yeah.
a drop of
And we will be told not to live in the past.
46, and well, you know,
Okay.
FP&A, so.
Please go to
Thank
the
you.
override slide at the end. I think it's the last slide. So this might qualify as a liaison adjacent report, because I was not the member at, not a voting member at ALG. But ALG, if I definitely don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, it sounded as though the municipal side was open to the possibility of going back and being tasked with meeting a budget that did not require an override, and that the school side was not yet quite prepared to commit to that until they had the results of AB Forward. For those of you that were in the room or listened to it online, is that an accurate description of what was said during ALG?
I don't know about ALG, but the last school committee meeting, they said, we're not willing to commit to there not being an override yet. It sounded like, that was, what I heard Tori say was, it's still on the table, we're hoping to not do
Yeah,
it.
that was their meeting Thursday night.
Okay, so that does comport with what I said, correct? Yes. And while this does not compel the municipal side not to come in with a budget that would trigger an override, I believe the municipal side was amenable to the concept of being directed to do such a thing. Yes?
That was my impression, Roland.
That's what I
So
recollect as well.
I would suggest, at the risk of being nitpicking on a single word here, we do not believe an operating override is necessary? Or do we believe that an operating override is recommended for the coming year? We don't know if it's necessary or not, because we have not been told what the results of AB Forward, nor have we actually received a final. So are we saying as a committee that we're saying this is too damn close to the last time that we did an override and too close to a failed capital exclusion? So I think necessary is a dangerous word. I think recommended is better.
I would agree.
The
My-
author agrees with you,
my,
so I think I'm good.
Since I wasn't at ALG, I watched it on Zoom. There's no appetite for an override, but certainly, I guess schools can't rule it out.
Right. So I think, again, I'm saying that as a committee, we are, and I'm with your permission, I would like to get a sense of the committee on, it is traditional at ALG that by end of October, and now that we've moved to a May timeline, by Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving is 2 days from now, it is traditional that ALG makes a recommendation on a go, no-go for a capital override by Thanksgiving.
You said capital.
Sorry. Sorry, yes, I apologize. An operating override. So is it indeed the sense of this committee that we do not wish to go for an operating override in fiscal year 27 in light of the fact that we did one 2 years ago and we had a failed debt exclusion last year? So with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Sense of the committee, please.
I really need to hear what the schools need. I'm not willing to cut off the opportunity. They're looking at, I think, a $4 million hole. No, $4 million was joint. They might just be screwed with AB Forward, even with AB Forward. The gap, they are cutting. They know they're cutting. And the question is whether they can cut enough. And they are cutting in a bow, and they're cutting way past.
So would you recommend that we wait off? Are you suggesting that we wait on a recommendation until after we hear from AB Forward final recommendations?
That is my position.
Okay. I just want to make sure,
Yep,
I
yep,
want to
thank
make sure
you.
I do not misrepresent your statement.
I think on the municipal side, yes, but on the schools, we still got to wait. We don't know what's going to transpire with AB Forward and closing their gap, so.
Are you okay with being asymmetric like that? Are you okay with saying that we're going to recommend shutting down or recommending against one side versus the other? I mean, what you just said was an asymmetric
Yeah.
statement. Are you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel we should still wait.
Wait for both or wait for school?
both, wait for
Wait
both,
for
right.
both. So not be
Because
asymmetric. Thank you.
You shouldn't be pitting one against the other, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I was saving this for the liaison reports, but let me give you the time frame, because I think that begins to answer your question, Jason. The steering committee, AB Forward, is meeting December 2nd, next week, they eliminated 5 of 13 options. They are planning to narrow it down to 3, maybe 4. They will be presenting that to the school committee, who has meetings scheduled December 4th and 18th. One of those meetings, I think the 18th, they are setting aside for exclusively the AB Forward decision to give communities time to respond. There will be an extended public comment session on January 8th, and the school committee does not plan to vote on the final one choice until January 22. So I'm in favor of giving them that runway. I know this is, in a traditional year, it would be nice to know in the fall what we were planning for the next spring. But having sat through several of these AB Forward processes and sitting through the school committee meeting a couple days later, they're making hard choices. The fact that they took the status quo, option 1, off the table last week means they are not trying to defend the existing situation. They know they're going to make some radical changes. And they're giving everybody time to process that because it is still a complex set of options in front of them. But they are doing heroic work, and I'm going to give them every damn minute that I can.
They're also saying it's not going to be enough. AB Forward is not going to fix this year's budget.
They were very clear about
And it's not that it
that.
won't happen in time, it's that the problem is just that big.
Well, I don't know what the actual gap in the ALG plan was. I didn't see the model when I was watching it on Zoom, but it was around $4 million the last time I looked. There's a little bit of over $1 million of untaxed levy capacity, which would drop it down if we chose to use it. And that would take it down maybe under 3. Typically, we've been able to solve $2 million gaps without any extraordinary measures in the past. Yeah, the schools are going to be cutting. So I'm not convinced that we need to wait till January 18th to take a position. I think it's entirely possible that we could balance this budget by using the untaxed levy capacity in more traditional means.
Corinne?
Hi, yeah. I agree with Steve. I wanted to ask a question. Peter Light said that Conant, they're gonna close Conant. Is that gonna be like by next fall? That Conant will be closed down?
Yes,
Okay, so if we know that, if they're saying like, okay, that's only gonna save, I don't know, what do they say, 18,000 or something for maintenance or utilities or whatever, and they know that's not gonna be enough to close their budget gap, they have to be doing another exercise in parallel with AB Forward to figure out how they are going to close their budget gap. They can't wait until January.
they are doing that in parallel.
They are?
Yes.
So-
And that was what was reported at the school committee. Again, we've got this backwards. If you want, we'll go through all of that in the liaison reports.
Okay, I'll listen to
But
that.
there were 2 different meetings last week, one on Tuesday of AB Forward Steering Committee, which eliminated 5 options. Then 2 days later, there was the school committee meeting, and they talked about budget and the shortfalls.
Okay, but I go back to, I still don't think that they need until January to figure out how to avoid an override. I think, like I said last year, that when they did this 2 years ago, we were blindsided as a community when we found out in October. And now they want to wait until January and get everybody all whipped up again and only have a few months to get all the information out there and have the arguments and have a vote. I think it's just way too little time.
With all due respect, having been in the room and watching the dynamic of hundreds of people watch a very difficult process, there are people who, I hate to say this, it's not just a building, it is, they are mourning the loss of a community. Now, it was very clear that closing the Conant building is not necessarily closing the Conant school. The school could relocate into a different building, but that is if you're a parent with kids in the school today, there is a lot of things that you still want to see work through. This is not, they're not rushing. This is a really, really hard decision.
All right, Christie?
Yeah, I was going to say, they don't want to wait until January. They need that much time to do this process with the community. This cannot come down by fiat. And it's just going to take that long to get through. And that's just for AB Forward. There are other budgetary problems. AB Forward is not going to solve. What we talked about is closing the Conant building, which is
And
minimal.
I'm talking about the other budgetary problems. I'm saying
They're working on that also.
that's what they should be working on. They said, yeah, I mean, we should know that before we know how they're going to reorganize the district. Because as you said, AB Forward's not going to solve the problem in the short term.
I think that's naive to view them as entirely separate, though, because of course, if AB Forward solves more of the problem, then they're not going to have to cut the school as much.
Mr. Chair, I suggest that we not finalize the POV on the statement about an override until a future meeting.
I'm fine with that. I also want to make one comment about the numbers going forward. I know we've talked about health insurance. Town manager and Peter are going to break it out for me or for the finance committee. But we can't ignore, because we don't know what the impact is. The fact that all the carriers now are not covering the weight loss drugs. We know that Maya changed their coverage with just Ozempic. It was an unusual spike in the healthcare increases in premium that correlated with the prevalence of effective weight loss drugs that were being covered by health insurance. With my just general kind of gut feeling that the change in the coverage of that, and it's not just Ozempic, it's all weight loss drugs are no longer going to be covered unless you have diabetes by these plans. It's going to reduce the pharmaceutical claims, which is going to bring down the cost, because the projections that everybody's working from right now include the assumption that nothing is changing in what's being covered. And if that was the largest increase in medical pharmaceutical expenses in the last 3 or 4 years, which I asked about this in May, and I've asked about it numerous times, if that was the largest increase in cost in the medical plans was pharmaceutical claims for weight loss drugs, that would correlate directly with the increase in premiums. And if that is then being removed, you could make an estimate that the same magnitude of a decrease, you would see it in the insurance premiums going out in time. Go ahead, Allison.
Have premiums ever gone down? Yes. Okay, that would be good to know because, it's just an opportunity for.
It was only $50, but they went down.
Okay. I'm not sure that we would expect them to actually go down by, the pro rata amount, the amount of the spend going down. I think that the health insurance companies are just going to make more money.
When buyers, so I see this in the student health insurance space. Buyers have choice, and they can change plans, and they can move their insurance. So what happens is that, and I've watched this for 16 years, if there is an increase in claims in a certain area, and in this student health, the most common example I've always used is birth control. If they start covering birth control as a pharmaceutical claim, the insurance premiums go up because of high utilization, and then they stop supporting that, and the premiums go back down again. So they do go up and down, and it is largely, it's driven off of claims, and it can, and since this is all compounded, the growth rates assumed for '26, and then the town manager had a normal growth going out from '27 to '31, and Peter's got it double digits for 2 years, and then to a reasonable growth rate. I think it was like 8% going out to '31. But it could be 2 or 3% a year, and then that compounds out to '31, and that 18 million could be 12 million.
What is the timing of, when do we know what our health insurance premiums are likely to be for the next fiscal year? Is that?
I don't know. David, do you know where the town gets their premium information? I know you're trying to leave, so I'll get you before you run out the door.
Oh, I'm okay for a few minutes. It's too bad that those guys just left. They should be finalized, early in the year, I think. We just got they give us 2 different times of preliminary numbers. And then I think maybe in the first quarter, they get better through the year. So they give us ones that we can budget on, I think, in the first quarter.
Thank you. Christie?
In general, we also have a member of the finance department who we can ask questions of.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Ellie. I just figured he knows about like the contracts, but since you do all the numbers.
My answer would be the same as his. Last year's rates, I believe we received the final ones at the end of January, beginning of February.
So I agree with Jason on that waiting for some more information is beneficial. I also feel like getting the more detailed breakout from Peter and John on the health insurance is going to help us understand where our real problem is in the forecast. Greg?
I want to make one other, I'm going to call it a suggestion. One of the sets of data that you have in there is based on ChatGPT data.
That's only the school ratings.
I know. Today in Fortune magazine, the CEO of Salesforce said, "I'm never using ChatGPT ever again. I've been using it every day for the last 3 years." He's going to Gemini. One of the things that you may want to do, and the nerdy reason why is ChatGPT was trained 18 months ago, and it uses the data it was trained on to give you answers, which automatically means it's not that good if your data is changing quickly. Gemini uses Google, which crawls zillions of times a day, and therefore gives you probably more up-to-date numbers. So you just may want to do a double check.
That's fine. I can check that. Anybody else? All right. What's that? Christie?
Back to your demographic, it's not demographic, your data talking about people's ability to pay taxes. At the school committee meeting, Tori was talking about the funding, how we are viewed, the wealth of the town. And that one thing it doesn't take into account is the number of people who are rich on paper, but living on a fixed income. And that if we can figure out how to, and I think she knows how to quantify that, that can change the outlook for our town compared to others nearby in a more meaningful sense for the tax base. like how willing people are to spend money.
And to follow up on that, as a pre-liaison report, not that I'm the liaison, there is a hearing on, I believe it's Wednesday, December 3rd, on this exact topic, and the school committee is asking for our support to show up and wave the banner of saying that the way that the Chapter 70 is funded now, the way that the Chapter 70 is calculated now is not sustainable, and that as the fiscally responsible members of the town who are making recommendations, that we would much prefer that the state do a better job of coming up with a calculation, a rate for Chapter 70.
And based on the Mass Municipal Association meeting that I attended, it turns out we're not the only town that feels screwed by the current formula. And there are hundreds, literally, of towns across Massachusetts that are also trying to lobby for a new look at Chapter 70. So it's not we're not tilting at windmills to try to go in and say, hey, please change it for us. There are a lot of communities that are in the same boat that we're in.
I got this data point. It wasn't off of ChatGPT, it was off the news. Massachusetts is the second most expensive state to live in, which is second only to Hawaii. And it's 21% of Massachusetts residents surveyed plan on leaving the state.
And they're mostly younger, they're generally, microphone.
Yeah, the people who are leaving the state are in a demographic that is after college, but before 35. And if you look at any of the demographic data for Acton, you'll see that in our so-called population pyramid, we have this ginormous gap missing of people who can't afford to buy a starter home because there are no starter homes here anymore.
So we are in the second most expensive state, and we're in a town that, and compared to other towns, appears to be less affordable. Allison?
Can you include references? Because the concept of affordability is rather subjective.
Well,
And
this
to say
is,
that a
sorry,
state-
I don't have the word affordable on the slide. This is just factual.
Oh, I meant going back to the slide where you've said that Massachusetts is the second
Oh, yeah, I
most
just got it from the
expensive state.
news.
It would be good to have, if
Fox
we're-
25.
I mean, because there are many states where you have more than a 10% sales tax. So for people
Yeah.
that spend a lot of their income, that's not captured in like property tax, right? But it's quite expensive to live in a state that taxes every single item you buy in that way.
It was 5 o'clock. I threw it in. I will verify and confirm. Thank you for calling me out on that. Is there any other comments on the point of view? Or, so we're, just to reconcile, we are holding our opinion on override until we have more information.
And there's a picture you need to remove, but I'll email that to you privately.
We could say we're optimistic. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, that's
No,
not.
we're never optimistic.
If it's this,
Oh.
this is not our town meeting.
No, it's a slide where you have three things on capital, or three buildings to sell.
Yeah.
And one of the buildings that you have to sell, you
Town.
cannot have that on there.
Should have town hall, yeah.
Town hall should not be on a building that you can possibly sell.
Or
And the
the-
Woodlawn Chapel is absolutely not something that you can sell because it was gifted to us
Yeah.
through, so those two
There you go.
pictures have to go.
I just have to change this. I just, you know what, I'll make an actual
Top
list.
of that list, thank you very much. Although apparently we're going to hire somebody full-time to be a librarian there. A what? Librarian, because it's a library annex.
Oh, is that where that person's gonna work?
That's what the picture showed.
When did it become a library annex? It's supposed to be an unheated.
No, if you look at the most recent email, it was, we need a 31.5 hour per week FTE to man the Ace Parlin House.
Which email was this?
I think it came in yesterday.
It was on Facebook. I grabbed it.
You could put an espresso machine in there, though, and sell $7 lattes to people, and make a killing, right?
$15 lattes.
I will make this a natural list, and I'll delete the ones that I can't have on here.
Deal.
This was just me being lazy and not wanting to type more than I already had to. I
Deal.
already had 40 slides. I mean, what's another one? All right. Any other questions on this? All right, I'm going to move on. I don't have much left. Would we be offended, because we've already kind of covered the liaison stuff, if we had the full liaison reports at the next meeting, or do you want to go through all liaison reports?
I would be delighted to email them to you.
I think we want to talk about them in open.
Oh, I can talk about them briefly and open in an email? No, I can't.
Greg,
Is
you've
it-
covered all the important things.
It's just, let's keep it, let's try to keep a 1-minute update to just things that are critical.
No, I think Greg has covered everything, where AB
No,
forward
he
got.
wants to talk more.
He wants to talk, but we're going to keep it to 60 seconds.
I yield my time to the better good.
All right, thank you. All right. Anybody else want to listen to themselves, or we have any other things that we want to get?
Yes, I want to listen to myself. Please,
All right.
if anyone's available, December 3rd, let's go
All right,
for
okay,
Chapter 70.
all right.
Chapter 70.
All right, so I'm going to go down to next meetings. I updated this to include, we have this DPW scenario meeting, 78, it's a Monday, December 8th. Then we're going to meet the next day. Or maybe, maybe we can just, I will put this on the shared drive, so I'll send everybody the link. So everybody in the audience and everybody online can get that. I added some of the 2026 meetings because they've been submitted. Roland approved the ones after May, but these are the ones that are on the calendar. And my understanding is Kids Vacation Week is the 3rd week of February, so I think our meeting is around Kid Vacation Week for those people that have children in school.
I won't be here February 10th.
All right, we're going to move it to February 9th then.
I won't be here February 9th. I'm going to be out of the country. I'm out of here.
All right, we'll make a road trip and find you.
But I'm not on a cruise.
All right. I think, unless there's any other objections, I'm going to go to Alex to be the cleanup hitter here.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, starting with you, Corinne, online. We are, motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.
Jason, Alex,
Aye.
Christie.
Aye. I think technically, yep, you have to say
I have to
everyone's
say,
name.
but I think I had to say, but they just jumped in so fast.
I know.
Allison said aye.
Aye.
Steve? Greg?
Aye.
Roland?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Christie again?
Aye.
She said it twice. Scott, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Corinne.
How was that, David? 9:03?